There are few places in the world where history, faith, and geopolitics collapse into a single square of stone. The Temple Mount is one of them. It is a paradox, a ticking clock, a mirror of heaven and a magnet for war. And at its heart lies a question that could reshape the modern Middle East, ignite religious passions around the globe, and, according to some, usher in the final chapter of history. Will the Third Temple ever be built? For Jews, the Temple Mount is the holiest site on earth. It's where the First and Second Temples stood, the beating heart of biblical worship, where heaven met earth. For Muslims, it's the Haram al-Sharif, the third holiest site in Islam, crowned by the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. For Christians, it's the ground where Jesus taught, wept, and overturned the tables of money changers. And for political leaders, strategists, and intelligence agencies, it's one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the world, a place where the spark of faith could ignite a regional, even global, firestorm. The idea of rebuilding the temple isn't theoretical, it's active, it's growing, and it's becoming harder to ignore. In the heart of Jerusalem, behind inconspicuous stone walls, organizations like the Temple Institute are preparing. They have reconstructed the sacred vessels described in the Torah, the menorah, the priestly garments, the golden altar, the Ark of the Covenant's model. They've trained Kohanim, Jewish men believed to be descendants of the ancient priesthood, in the rituals of sacrifice. They've even bred red heifers in Israel and the United States, essential for the purification rites required before entering the sacred precincts. For centuries, Jews would end the Passover meal with the phrase, "Next year in Jerusalem." Today, some are whispering, "Next year on the Temple Mount." And yet, the Mount is not just a religious symbol, it is a geopolitical chessboard. Any change to the fragile status quo, even a hint of Jewish prayer on the site, sends tremors through the Arab world. When Israeli politicians like Ariel Sharon visited the Mount in 2000, it triggered the Second Intifada, a 4-year uprising that left thousands dead. Today, Israeli security forces tread carefully, balancing between Jewish aspirations and Muslim sovereignty, all under the watchful eyes of Jordan, the Palestinian Authority, and the entire Islamic world. Why then would anyone risk touching the most sensitive piece of real estate on earth? Because for many religious Jews, especially within the religious Zionist movement, the return to the Temple Mount is not a provocation. It is destiny. They believe that without a temple, Israel is incomplete. That Zionism is not just about a homeland, it's about redemption. And redemption cannot come until the temple stands again. This vision isn't isolated. It's creeping into politics. Some Knesset members openly support Jewish prayer on the Mount. Others have backed legislative efforts to assert Israeli sovereignty over the site. And while the official government line remains cautious, the political winds are shifting. As Israeli society moves gradually rightward, the fringe becomes the mainstream. What was once taboo becomes debatable. And what becomes debatable eventually becomes possible. But here's where the stakes rise. The construction of a third temple would not be a local event. It would be global. The Islamic world would interpret it as a desecration, perhaps even an act of war. It would likely spark riots in every major Arab capital. Iran could seize it as a pretext for escalation against Israel. Hezbollah, Hamas, and other groups could launch attacks under the banner of defending Al-Aqsa. Even moderate regimes like Jordan and Egypt, bound to Israel by peace treaties, would face internal pressure to sever ties. The global left, already critical of Israeli policy, would erupt. The Vatican would likely issue condemnations. And all of this in an era where social media amplifies outrage faster than diplomacy can respond. And yet, despite the volatility, the idea persists. Some evangelical Christians, particularly in the United States, support the rebuilding of the temple not out of solidarity with Judaism, but because they believe it fulfills biblical prophecy. For them, the temple's return is a sign of the approaching end times. This unlikely alliance between religious Jews and Christian Zionists creates a potent current of funding, lobbying, and pressure that reaches all the way to Washington. In fact, it was this alignment between conservative Christian voters, Orthodox Jews, and geopolitical strategists that played a key role in the U.S. recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital in 2017 under President Trump. That move, widely condemned abroad, was celebrated by those who see history not as a cycle, but as a divine script with a climax. But what would a third temple mean beyond prophecy? It would alter the religious landscape of Israel. It would transform the identity of Jerusalem, and it could tear apart the fragile legal arrangement known as the status quo, the unwritten rules that have kept relative calm on the Mount since 1967. Under that agreement, Muslims worship at the site, while Jews may visit but not pray. The Israeli government, for decades, upheld this arrangement to avoid a religious war, but in the shadows, that balance is eroding. Today, more Jews are ascending the Mount than ever before. Quiet prayers are muttered. Religious symbols are subtly displayed. Some groups even conduct practice sacrifices nearby during Passover, and with every quiet shift, the status quo phrase. So what happens if it breaks? The answer is terrifyingly unclear. Perhaps it begins with a fringe activist ascending the Mount with a stone or shovel. Perhaps it's a political decision dressed as national pride. Perhaps it's just a rumor, but one that spreads like wildfire. And then, the ancient ghosts return, protest, violence, military escalation. The Mount, once again, becomes a volcano. But there's another possibility, one that seems improbable, even impossible, that somehow the world changes, that religious leaders find common ground, that a new model emerges, not of conquest, but of coexistence, a shared sacred space, a third way. The temple is a house of prayer for all nations, as the prophet Isaiah wrote. Is that naive? Maybe. But the alternative is becoming harder to contain. The third temple is not just an architectural project. It is a spiritual earthquake, a theological detonation. And in an age already teetering on the edge of conflict, identity crises, and civilizational fatigue, it may be the match that lights a much larger fire. And yet, the idea grows, in whispers, in prayers, in politics. The third temple remains in the shadows, not because it is forgotten, but because it is feared. But someday someone will try, and when they do, the world will hold its breath.